Today I'm counting down my picks for the top 10 best heavy metal albums released in 2023. This was an incredible year for heavy metal. There were so many iconic bands with new music, and there will be a few surprises here as well. I had a tough time narrowing this list down to just 10 entries. There were so many great albums worth mentioning this year. Here's my list of top 10 heavy metal albums of 2023. Coming in at number 10 is Alcatrazz with Take No Prisoners. The reason I chose this album is because they decided to keep the music heavy. A lot of times with these older bands, they tend to get softer and more melodic. But this was not the case for this band. My favorite song was probably track number 5, called Gates of Destiny. I like this because the main guitar riff had an Iron Maiden influence, but the rest of the song was very melodic with a lot of late 70s hard rock and metal influence. I even heard some classic Rainbow in this song. Another reason why I'm including this is because it was a band that was active in the early 80s, but they didn't release albums until 2020 again, and since then they've been going strong, so for that reason I have them on this list. Coming in at number 9 is Tigers of Tang with Bloodlines. I chose this because it was an album that I kind of liked at first, but it didn't blow me away. So for some reason, the songs kept coming up on my YouTube playlist, and I started to really enjoy this album. I like the fact that they're both melodic and heavy. My favorite song is Back for Good. The song is such a catchy chorus that sticks in your head after you listen to it, and has a melody you can sing along to, as well as some cool traditional heavy metal guitar riffs. If you did not know, this band was part of the new wave of British heavy metal movement in the 80s, but they have been fairly active in the past 10 years or so. So I think for an old band, they still have some good songs in them, and for that reason, I have them ranked right here. Coming in at number 8 is KK's Priest with The Sinner Rides Again. When this came out, I talked a lot of shit about it, it was kind of cheesy, and the song titles were derivative of a lot of Priest songs, but the truth about this album is that it's pretty good. I chose this one because it doesn't have any weak songs. The album has good replay value. My favorite song is Hymn 66. I like that song because it's a slower song. The guitar playing reminded me of modern Metallica. The music video was really cool. It had like this eyes wide shut kind of theme. I thought it was a worthy follow-up to their debut album. They're not doing anything different, but still deserves to make this list. Coming in at number 7 is Last in Line with Jericho. I chose this because this band consists of the classic lineup from the original Dio band, including Vivian Campbell, Vinny Appice, and Jimmy Bain. This was my album of the month when it came out. It's classic heavy metal in the style of the original Dio band. My favorite song was called Do the Work. I like this song because it has a great message that says if you want to get something in life, you have to do the work. The band has only 3 albums. I think this was their best album. It was a concept album based on the Bible story of Jericho. It had themes about good versus evil. Overall, it was worth making this list. Coming in at number 6 is Night Demon with Outsider. I chose this album because I feel they are one of the better bands that are part of this new wave of traditional heavy metal. Many other bands within this genre, such as Skullfist or Riot City and Haunt, they're similar to that. I feel this band captures that small subgenre of bands from the early 80s that made heavy metal music, but a lot of it delved into dark themes. My favorite song on the album is the title track called Outsider. The reason for that is because it's the most memorable song on the album. It's very catchy. It has the kind of chorus you can sing along to, and I like this band because they are a newer band. They're making waves. They're bringing back an old style. They have been very consistent. They have 3 albums under their belt, so for that reason, they're on this list. Coming in at number 5 is Lancaster with Hell Campaign. I chose this because they are an unsigned band I just discovered by chance, and considering that I listen to a lot of metal music, for some reason I kept listening to this album. They're listed as heavy metal, but I think they can be leaning towards thrash a little, and I also hear Big Megadeth influence in this band, mostly in the vocals. My favorite song was called The Dictator. I like the song because the guitar riff was very memorable. I also like the fact that it had sort of a 90s groove sound with wailing guitars. I've only listened to this album, but they have a full-length, I think they have 2 full-length albums in their discography. They deserve to be on this list because they are able to catch my attention as an underground band, and I kept going back to this album. Coming in at number 4 is Spirit Adrift with Ghost at the Gallows. I chose this one because the album is very consistent. I thought all the songs had a good flow to them. If you don't know, this band started as a doom metal band, but on this release they moved more towards a heavy metal style. Imagine if Ozzy Osbourne and James Hetfield grew up together in the South and they formed a band. My favorite song is the title track, Ghost in the Gallows. I like this because it's the last song on the album and it has everything you would expect from the band. It has those Tony Iommi style guitar riffs, the heavy chugging of traditional metal, slower breakdowns, sludgy vocals. Band is very consistent. They've released 5 full-length albums since 2016, and I've also released several EPs and compilations. They're one of the best up-and-coming metal bands out there, and I've only heard positive things from other music channels. Again, number 3 is Burning Witches with The Dark Tower. I chose this one because it's a band that is bringing back a classic heavy metal style that was popular in the early 80s. Think of the first album by Wasp, or even Blizzard of Oz by Ozzy Osbourne. Those were albums where they were heavy metal, but they had these like dark and occult themes and imagery. So this band does this perfectly. My favorite song is the title track. It has such a great guitar riff, and the chorus is catchy. I like this band because they are fairly new on the scene, but they already have about like 5 full-length albums under their belt. They're very consistent in their output. All their albums are very good. So at this point, if you're paying attention, the 2 albums for 1 and 2 are Avenged, Sevenfold, and Metallica. I didn't give either of these albums a very favorable review at first, but they both have stood the test of time in terms of replay value. They are 2 albums from legacy bands that are different than the earlier material that was released like in the 80s or 90s. So now it's time for my final decision for number 1 and 2. Coming in number 2 is Avenged Sevenfold with Life is But a Dream. I chose this album because it was very different than anything that the band had ever done before. I didn't like it at first. I think my original score was a 6 out of 10. But since then I've been returning to it a lot. Hard to pick a favorite song. I would say it's the single Nobody. When the song first came out, I didn't like it, but when you hear it within the context of the album and understand how it fits into the big picture, you can appreciate it. I think that this band wants to do something different. They've been evolving their sound with every album since they came out in the late 90s, and the previous album, The Stage, that was more in a progressive direction, so this was the natural progression for the band. So therefore my number 1 is Metallica with 72 Seasons. So you might be wondering why I have it on this list in the first place. Then why is it not on the thrash metal list? It's because I don't feel they are a thrash metal band anymore. There are maybe like 1 or 2 songs that may be considered thrash, but the rest of the album is just metal. I call it heavy metal, but Metallica is now their own genre. So my favorite song on the album is the last one, which is Inamorata. So this song, it ends the album very well. It's slow, it's sludgy. It would fit on an album like Load or Reload, but I enjoy the guitar sound in that song as if they're channeling some classic Black Sabbath. I think if you go into this album with the expectation they are not going to sound like they did in the 80s, you can appreciate it for what it is. So for that reason, I have it here on this list. And that's all. Check out some of the other full reviews of the albums mentioned here. They'll be right around there. Let me know your picks for the best heavy metal albums of the year in the comments below, and we can compare our lists. Don't forget to leave this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Please subscribe to my channel for more metal content like this. Thanks for watching. Catch you in the next video.